And oftentimes the conservatives who are motivated primarily by country patriotism, they're not necessarily very book-oriented. They are people who simply, have a feeling that the way we've been doing things, in your neighborhood, in my neighborhood, is the right way of doing things, and we want to insist on preserving the way of life that we've known. And so these conservatives are often easily attacked by the left. They're accused of xenophobia because they prefer their neighbors and their neighborhoods to foreign countries and strangers. And they're attacked as isolationists because they're more concerned about the fentanyl problem in their own hometown rather than who's going to control Ukraine. And these local patriotic conservatives are often very ill represented by Conservatism Inc. in Washington, D.C. and, in the media world and so forth. I do argue in my essay, and I think this is correct, that the left is responsible for creating the kind of conservative that they are actually most afraid of. What I mean by that is the first three sources of conservatism, local patriotism, country patriotism, religion, and the philosophy of balance, these are all things that have a very strong positive commitment to civilization. They're all things that clearly have some components that the most mild kind of progressive would find acceptable and relatively non-threatening. Progressives, don't like traditional religion. They don't like, local community, especially of the more, sort of what I'm calling, patriotic localism of that variety. They just dislike the realism, basically, of the philosophy of balance. Progressives are much more utopian than that. Nevertheless, you'll find that there are progressives and other people on the left who they have respect for, sort of Burkean conservatives. They'll say nice things about William F. Buckley Jr. They talk about how they are not, they don't think of themselves as being hostile to religion in every respect. And, and they understand that, people will have some degree of loyalty to their local communities. And yet, what is the program that the left and the progressives have actually adopted? The program they've adopted and that they're imposing both through their control of public institutions like the public schools and the federal government, especially the federal bureaucracy, and they're imposing it through the power they have in the private sector as well, in corporate America with HR departments and whatnot, in private universities and schools, in the private media, in the Washington Post and in the social networks. What the left is imposing is a framework and a set of beliefs that completely destroy those three sources of conservatism, right? So when you pursue a kind of economic globalism and when you pursue policies that are constantly federalizing and nationalizing elections and nationalizing, who gets to use what bathroom and whatnot, when you have that sort of universalistic leftist agenda, you obviously weaken local communities. You make them subject to national federal bureaucracies.